What would you make a rival situation involves your car race after a race, but you decide to stop? This is exactly what Ferrari is doing in the GP of Spain. But, tactical genius or fatal error? Ferrari has generated an unexpected turn in its technical approach to the Spain Grand Prix 2025. Despite being traditionally a key date in the calendar to introduce significant aerodynamic improvements, Fred Vasseur has confirmed that there will be no substantial evolution package. This statement shook not only the specialized media, but also the complete paddock. The Barcelona circuit has always been considered the perfect laboratory to validate technical concepts due to its balanced mixture of rapid, slow and straight curves that allow extrapolating the performance of a car to most of the other paths of the championship. Therefore, historically, the teams choose this moment of the season to launch their most aggressive developments. However, Ferrari has opted on the contrary. Stop. The only visible novelty will be a front wing, and not as a result of an autonomous innovation process, but as a normative reaction. The FIA will implement in the Spanish GP new stricter tests on the flexibility of the front aerodynamic elements, a measure that seeks to eliminate the use of spoilers that, although the static tests pass, are dynamically deformed to obtain load advantages without increasing the resistance to progress. In essence, Ferrari adapts to comply with the regulation, but does not improve. And that distinction is crucial. The new spoiler has not been designed to add load, reduce drag or improve the balance of the car. It has been created to survive the new technical scrutiny. But why has Ferrari renounced planned updates? The answer is under the skin of SF-25. What was initially thought that it would be an optimized continuation of the SF-24 solid has turned out to be a more complex machine than expected. The first races and data collected during the tests revealed that the true limitations of the car are not in the body or in the aerodynamic tunnels, but in their mechanical foundations. The technical team led by Loic Serra identified important deficiencies in the rear suspension, a critical area for the stability of the car both in braking and in traction. This has forced the development plan radically. When facing a dilemma between correcting a structural defect or applying superficial improvements that would not solve the origin of the problem, the Scuderia chose the first. They prioritized redesign or reinforced the suspension system before continuing to introduce new pieces that they would only hide but would not solve the symptoms. This decision may seem conservative, even passive, but in reality it is a mature recognition that genuine performance cannot be built on a weak basis. In addition, there is another strategic factor at stake: the uncertainty caused by regulatory changes. Ferrari has understood that the implementation of the new rules could redraw the competitive hierarchy. If the teams that have benefited the most from the intelligent and possibly controversial use of aerodynamic flexibility are forced to retreat in their developments, Ferrari could be in a better position without running the risk of investing prematurely in a car that perhaps requires a deeper conceptual review towards the middle of the season. Thus, what seems like a step back is also a patient wait at the right time to counterattack with more force. More than a withdrawal, Ferrari seems to be drawing a meticulously calculated chess play, a maneuver that reveals a cold reading of the technical and competitive context in which Formula One is located in 2025. The absence of updates in Barcelona, instead of evidencing resignation, could be a way of waiting for the technical storm to pass and then emerge with advantage. This strategy is not only about resource savings or internal restructuring due to necessity. It has a deliberate tactical dimension. Exploit the regulatory timing to reposition itself without exposing the premature where that other equipment will suffer by having to readjust under pressure. With the entry into force of new, more demanding evidence on aerodynamic flexibility, especially centered on the front ailerons, Ferrari bets that their current design philosophy, more rigid and traditional, will be less affected than that of rivals such as McLaren and Mercedes, who have pushed the limits of aerodynamic flexion to generate curve load without penalty in straight. These concepts, although ingenious, could now be penalized. The team director, Fred Vasseur, has said it implicitly: everyone will have to redesign their ailerons, and that can level the differences in performance, making the most dependent equipment of these flexible solutions lose part of their advantage. From this angle, what Ferrari has done is to place a piece in a strategic position, waiting for the rest of the board to be reorganized so that it is favorable. It's not just about not spending money on a package of improvements. It is not to spend on a package that would be very possibly ineffective or even detrimental under the new regulation, because any improvement based on aerodynamic principles prior to the new standard could be annulled in a matter of weeks. In addition, this tactical pause allows something that few equipment can be allowed: redesign calmly. While the others struggle to maintain performance in the midst of normative change, Ferrari could be laying the foundations for a second, stronger season. Release technical and engineering resources at this time offers them the opportunity to work in integrated solutions, not in patches, to solve from the chassis and the suspension to a new aerodynamic balance more consistent with the current demands. And that is exactly what SF-25 needs: coherence, not simply power. But this strategy also has a psychological involvement within the championship. In an environment where the teams compete not only on the track but also in the headlines, Ferrari unchecks the empty promises game. While its rivals constantly announce improvements, generating an expectation that often does not concrete in results, Ferrari lowers the profile, manages the pressure and redirects the focus towards real performance instead of the cosmetic. This allows pilots such as Leclerc and Hamilton better understand the machine they have in hand, work more directly with engineers and develop a more genuine connection with the car, instead of constantly adapting to new pieces that change the behavior of the car without improving their foundations. Ferrari's strategy for the Spain Grand Prix not only raises a technical pause, but also a character test for the entire organization. This conservative and reflective approach entails real and very visible risks, both in the sports and psychological field. While the rest of the grille haste to implement improvements, pressured by the urgency of points and results, Ferrari decides to swim against the current. But in a sport like Formula One, where every thousandth of it, this pause can be interpreted by many as a sign of weakness or lack of ambition. And there begins the real challenge. The first obvious risk is to lose ground in the classification of builders. McLaren, with his aggressive evolution of MCL39, has already shown a clear advantage, dominating both simulations and in real career rhythm. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have established themselves as a highly competitive duo, backed by a car that has responded well to regulatory adaptations. On the other hand, Mercedes begins to find regularity with George Russell as his spearhead, while Kimi Antonelli progresses with every weekend. Even Red Bull, despite his internal instability, remains a threat to Verstappen's pure talent. In that context, any step back by Ferrari could become an irreversible gap. But the second risk, less visible but deeper, is internal wear. Ferrari not only runs against his rivals, runs against herself. The historical pressure, the media expectations, the emotional legacy of the oldest team in the championship. The Italian team has a long history of autoboicots when things do not work to the desired rhythm. And this strategy of slowing down the development to thoroughly correct the SF-25 could become a boomerang if the results do not accompany. A series of careers without notable improvements, with distant podiums or poorly executed strategic abandonments, can crack the morale of the team and relive old ghosts of frustration and institutional crisis. The key is how this period is managed. Leclerc and Hamilton, each with a very different profile, can be fundamental to sustain the balance of the project. Leclerc has already demonstrated its faithfulness to the team even in its worst moments, and its ability to extract the maximum of the car in adverse conditions will be crucial. For its part, Hamilton brings a winning mentality and a more polished technical vision, derived from its long history in Mercedes. But even he, with all his experience, has made it clear that the process of adaptation to SF-25 has not been immediate, especially in rainy conditions or under strategic pressure. In this context, redemption will not come in the form of a miraculous career or an isolated victory. It will arrive, if, as a progressive reconstruction of trust in the car, in internal processes and in technical decision-making. If Ferrari manages to resolve its mechanical deficit, capitalize on the new regulations and redesign its solid base package, then it could reach the second half of the season as a true contender. Not the one that begins strong and deflates, but the one that plans in the long term, absorbs the initial blows and throws their attack when others lower their guard. The final question is not whether Ferrari has made a mistake when stopping in Barcelona. The question is whether this risky, countercultural and methodical decision will be the foundation of a calculated return or the symptom of an inability to evolve to the rhythm required by the current Formula One. Time and only time will say it. Ferrari has chosen a path as unexpected as calculated. In a sport dominated by urgency, the need to improve every weekend, each sector, each curve, the decision to stop may seem at first glance a form of surrender. But when observing in detail, this pause reveals a different philosophy. It is not about competing in each race as if it were the last one, but about building something that can be sustained over time and resist the turbulence that will inevitably bring the technical and competitive changes of 2025. This conservative strategy in Barcelona is not a resignation, but a redefinition of the immediate objective. Ferrari does not seek ephemeral victories or dazzling holders. Find stability, look for a reliable platform on which to relaunch your offensive. He has sometimes learned by the bad that rapid improvements can cover up deeper failures and that a poorly founded solution can end up costing more than a poorly executed career. Now, with this more mature approach, the Italian team has decided to wait. Wait for the new rules to reveal the weaknesses of their rivals. Waiting for your own car, corrected from the entrails, becomes the tool with which they can build a second half of the solid, coherent, and competitive season. But this wait is not passive. It is active, demanding, focused on redefining technical and organizational priorities, in transforming the pause into progress and doubt and confidence. Ferrari fans, accustomed to drama and contradictory decisions, could feel frustrated in the absence of immediate action. But this time the story could be different. Because if everything runs correctly, this could be the silent turning point that nobody saw coming. The moment where Ferrari stopped reacting to start leading. And there is the essence of this story. It's not just about what Ferrari is doing, but how he is doing it. With less noise, less empty promises, and more internal work. Betting in the long term in a championship that rewards consistency, technical intelligence, and the ability to adapt not only to the circuits, but to the changing context of the modern Formula One. Is it enough? Will this tactical pause end up being the seed of a historical redemption or just another lost opportunity under a sophisticated narrative? That is what will make the next races not only exciting, but decisive for the immediate future of the Scuderia.